Hi guys, this is an addition to the Capture Nerf gameplay video series that I did back in, I think, December, January kind of time. There was a comment that was put on my third video by NerfTurfBattle asking to go through the process of taking a blaster image and cutting it out so it's just the image and then layering it over a video. So I've gone through that basic process. I say basic. There's a couple of methods that I show. The reason it's taken so long to do it is because I've been waiting for a blaster to do it on. I've done all of the blasters that I use, and I recently got a new blaster back at the end of January, early February, which was the X-Shot Vigilante, and I used that at the most recent Bristol blast that I attended. So now I need to create a blaster icon to use in my videos. This is what I've done to it. So this is what it looks like. And there's a full write-up on BritNerf. There's a link in the description if you want to go and see what I've actually done to it. But for the video, I needed to take an image of my blaster. It's not actually this one, it's the stock image. And then I needed to cut the background out and then layer it over a video. So I'm going to hand you over to other me, who's going to take you through that process.
Okay, so there are two different ways of achieving the effect we're going for. The first requires the use of Microsoft products, and then the second way is actually some freeware that you can download for nothing. And we're going to go through both methods. I will say that there are probably ways in which you can do this in the film editing software itself. However, the times that I've spent trying to achieve it, the effect hasn't been all that good. I don't know if it's because it's the free version I'm doing, or if it's because of the quality of the photos that I'm using, or what. I don't know what it is. However, these two methods that I'm going to show you have been used on all of the blaster icons that I use in my videos. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is go and open up Chrome and do a search on Google for the X-Shot Vigilante. I've already done this search before. And then I want to find a suitable photo that's relatively big. That one there will do. Now what you don't want to do is right click on this and save it, because that will save the thumbnail. You want to click on it so it's a bit larger, right click on that, and then save that image as thumbnail. And then I'm going to rename it something that's sensible. That's been downloaded. We're done with Chrome now, that can go away. Now, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to open up Microsoft PowerPoint, but you can do this in Excel or Word, but I just prefer to do it in PowerPoint, that's just my preference. Open up a blank presentation and get rid of the GIMP that's on it. Go into Insert Picture. Go to where you've saved your picture to and open it up. Now this has opened up this format toolbar, and we're going to use the remove background tool to remove the background, but let's make it a little bit more centralized. So hit remove background, and because it's a solid white background, it does a pretty good job actually of working out what it wants to keep. So we're just going to expand that over to there a little bit, and then we'll expand that over to there a little bit, and you can see it's alright, it's not too bad. But there are a few bits that we're going to want to get rid of. Now, I don't want to actually have the handle in this, so I'm going to chop most of that off anyway. So I might as well just do that, and it removes it. I'll then remove this little lump here because I don't want that on there either. The blaster I've got has been modded that doesn't have this bit on it or the stock, so why should I display it here? So then the next thing I'm going to do is just going to zoom in. You can see that there are some bits that's missed, so we're going to use these two options: mark the areas you want to keep and mark the areas to remove. I'm going to select mark to remove and go and select some bits that I want to get rid of. and then just keep applying these to the places you want to keep and the places you want to get rid of until you are happy with the effect. So I'm fairly comfortable with that. I do want to get rid of that little lump by there. That looks alright. Let's zoom over to this other area here because we want to get rid of this bit here. That looks pretty good. Let's zoom back out. That looks good to me. You've got all the definition around the outlines, around the trigger from what I can see. Now I'm just going to keep the changes, and that's what the blaster will look like. Now the reason we did these inserts by here is when we save it, it's going to save it as a PNG file, and PNG files save this white transparent background as transparent background, whereas a JPEG file will save all that blank transparent space as white. And we don't want it to save it as white, we want it to save it as a PNG where it's going to save that information as transparent, and that bit's important. So let's go and save that as PNG. We'll call this Vigilante Final, and we'll call this MS Microsoft. So that's been saved. That was really easy. Now, if you didn't have a solid background, it would be really difficult to use this technique because it relies on the outline of the blaster and having nothing else around it to do the clever bit, to do the work. If you had a blaster that had a bunch of background, like it was in the grass or it was on a table and it was a wooden table and there was lots of slats on it, this would be really difficult to do this technique. So I'm going to show you another way of getting almost the same effect. It takes longer if you put the effort into it, but you get a better result. This, for our purposes, is more than adequate, but let me just close this down and I'll show you. No, we don't want to save it. Now I use a tool called GIMP, don't laugh, but it's called GIMP, actually GIMP 2, and that's an image processing software. It's free, you can go and look it up anywhere on the internet somewhere. I'm using 2.8, it's probably out of date now, but the one that I'm using, I enjoy using this one. I've got some add-ins and plugins that I use that make it look a bit more like Photoshop. When in its default setting, a lot of the panes are floating, and I didn't really like that, but if you spend the time to configure it the way you want, it's basically a cheap version of Photoshop, and we can do some manipulation in there. So I'll wait for it to load and then we will carry on. And that's it loaded in. What we're going to do now is we're going to open up a layer. Nope. We're going to open up a layer. And I'm going to go and find what I just downloaded, which was that one. So now we're back to our original picture, and we're going to use this tool here. Where's it to? The fuzzy select tool. So we're going to click that, and we're just going to click, and you can see that it is selected all around the outside because it's got this picture's got a really good outline. It's nice and clear because of the white background. What we're going to do now is we're going to go into select and we're going to invert it so that actually, rather than selecting the white, we select the opposite of what was the white. I'm going to copy that by doing Control C, and then I'm going to create a new layer. It's going to be a transparent layer, and then I'm going to paste into that layer, but you can see it's got this floating selection that's appeared. I'm just going to anchor that to the layer, and I turn that layer off, and you can see we've got a fairly decent transparent picture that we could save. Now I'm not going to do it now because it could take hours. It'll take as long as you want to put into the effort you want to put into it, but you can find the eraser tool, which is somewhere in here. Sorry, the icons are so small on my screen and I'm sat so far back from it I can barely see it. And then we're going to go and change the size perhaps, as you can see that it's a circle. So we'll put that up to, say, no, we don't want it to be that big. That size, and you can then just go and start rubbing away the bits you don't want. And then you can start zooming in, and you can see all of this white stuff here, all this pixelated stuff. You might not want that. You might. What I've done in the past is I've gone and used the tool to just get rid of that stuff. As you can imagine, this is boring, takes some time, but the effort's worthwhile. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go through and do it all now, but you can imagine spending the time going through and tidying up. I'm really rough. I would be spending a lot more time doing this. This is just for demonstration purposes. But let's say that's what you wanted. You could then do export, and you could export it as, we'll call it that, but we'll call this one GIMP because it's funny. And then just export with the default settings. What I will then do is close that down because we don't need it. I'm not going to save it. I'm then going to open up my editing software, which is Film Express. Again, this is a free bit of kit that you can download. I'm not going to go into too much detail into the how it works, but I will go through the process of taking those images we just created and adding them into my starter template. So I've got a starter template that contains all of the stuff that I need or that I want before I start editing a piece of gameplay. And in that, I'll wait for it to open, and I'll go in. I'll show you what I have to do. So I've got these different layers. So this is a Blaster Icons video layer. What I've just selected is actually, if I get rid of all of that, is that layer there with the hammer shot on it. So that is actually a composite shot, and I've got a bunch of folders, but basically I've got this Blaster Icons composite shot. So if I open up the composite shot, you will see a list of all of the blasters that I have done this to. So if I unselect that, I've got my zombie hand, got the Desolator, got the Magnus, and so on. So what we're going to do is we are actually going to import some media, and we're going to import, I'll import all three, but I'm only going to keep one of them, and I'll show you what I mean about the JPEGs. So there's the JPEG. If I add that into here, you can see that it's white, and we don't want that, so I'm going to get rid of that. And then we've got the, so that's the GIMP one that we messed around with. So you can see you've got all this fuzziness around the outside. I'm not particularly fussed with that. So I would, if I was doing this with a blaster that had a non-white background or a non-solid colour background, I would go and spend the time, and I go and tidy all of that up. And probably spend a good 2 or 3 hours doing that, depending on how complicated the blaster was, depending on the shape. So just beware that if you're going to do that, it's time consuming, but you only need to do it once. Once you've done it once, it's done. We're going to mess around with this one. So first of all, let's get in a little bit closer, because what I want to do, you can see the lines on that are really clean. I want to tidy up this bit here. So I'm going to add a mask, click on the masks, and this icon here is the freehand mask tool, and I am just going to start here and just click away and create a little outline around the handle of the blaster that will match my lines, and then everything else is fine. You can just sort of do it. Now you can see that that has only left the handle. If we go and click this little button here, it flips it the other way. That's exactly what we want. Let's scale to fit. Let's unselect the mask because we don't really want to see it. That's what it will look like. So what do we need to do now to make it look or become part of the shot in the same way that the hammer shot was. So we'll put the hammer shot back on so we can see what that looks like. Then we're literally just going to rotate this so that it's straight. Let's get in a little bit closer. Once we're happy with it being straight, that looks fairly straight to me. We are then just going to scale it down. So let's try 20%. Let's see what that looks like. Let's go move that on top of the hammer shot. That is too small, but we can zoom in. So with the hammer shot for reference, we can make this a little bit bigger. Maybe put the nose in the same place as the hammer shot. Now, is that too big? Yeah, it's probably too big, so let's make that 45. Scooch it down a little bit, let's move it across. And then that for me is probably done. If we go back to the editor now, you'll see that the Vigilante has appeared in there. That looks pretty solid to me, I'm happy with that. And that's it done. All I need to do now is save. Actually, there's probably two things I need to do. Oh no, there isn't actually. I'll just double check the zombie hand one. We might as well make it the same. We'll just copy that, paste it into the zombie hand one, just so that it's even in case I need to use it another time for whatever reason. But that's it. That's ready to go. So all I need to do now, if I want to use that blaster icon, is just go into it, and then I can just select whichever blaster I want to happen to use, and then it will feed through into my main editor. And that's it. Job done. I'm going to save that, collapse all of that, and we are done. I will hand you back over to Cowboy Me to say goodbye.
And there you have it. As you can see, there's two different ways you can do it. There's probably other ways, but they're the ways that I've chosen to do it. I will reiterate that in the software, the video editing software itself, you can probably find a way of doing it. I just haven't found a good way of doing it, one that I'm comfortable with. The other thing I want to say is that I didn't actually have a video in my editor timeline, but you would just put your video in one of the lower channels, and that would layer, the layers above that video would display over the top of it. Hopefully you kind of got that from what you were seeing in there. Anyway, if you like what you saw, please leave a like, give me a thumbs up, or a comment down in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do so by clicking on this button right by here. And if you want some more of this kind of content, you can click this button right by here. I'll catch you guys next time.